Welcome to Puzzle Pieces, episode 4. It's your favorite care conqueror and empowerment coach, Candace, reporting live from where? Empower to Care. Thank you guys for joining me today for this episode. I want to point out that I'm wearing my favorite shirt. As you can see, it says, I am just out here doing all the things. So one of the things that I've learned in this caregiving journey is that you have to live a life of intention. And I think that's across the board for everyone, regardless of whether they're a caregiver or not. But watching my parents become sick and ill and just go through all of these challenging things over the last decade has really taught me to live my life with intention. So this shirt is my favorite because I really am out here doing all the things. And I want to encourage you today that if you are a caregiver or a recovering caregiver or a burned out caregiver or just somebody that is a situation where life is lifing, you can do hard things, but put yourself first, meaning prioritize yourself and the rest will follow. I hear a lot of people say things to me like, oh, you make it look so easy, or I can't do that. That's hard. Maybe you could do that. We can all do hard things, and we all do hard things with the understanding that nothing lasts forever. So, like I said, I've been through much of this journey, buried a parent. I'm still an advocate and caregiver for my mom. So this journey is not over for me yet, although it has changed. I think I reminded you guys in one of our episodes that I'm no longer a hands-on caregiver, but I am a caregiver and advocate for my mother still. So I'm in the trenches with you guys. I always like to give a special shout out to isolated caregivers. So in my mind, and somebody can always jump in the comments and tell me if I'm wrong, but an isolated caregiver, I've been that before, meaning you just have limited range. Okay, so maybe you live in a rural area, remote area, there's not a lot around you, you can't really get out of the house much because it just takes so much to find someone to help you with caring for your loved one or having the respite that you need in order to just kind of get out and live your life. So even during the times where I was kind of burned out and, I was juggling way too many responsibilities, I still made it a point to make sure that I traveled. I love to travel. So I made sure that I traveled. I made sure that I checked in with my friends and, just kind of like tuned into the important relationships outside of caregiving. My children, I gave them time. Now, obviously, you can't spread yourself too thin, but always make sure to do what you can to intentionally maintain the relationships and the support systems that you have in place. I am going to jump into episode 4. Today's episode is going to talk about the ways in which we assist our loved ones. And in this case, I'm discussing my parents, but this could cross all lines. It could be if you have a special needs child. It could be if you have a special needs loved one. It doesn't necessarily have to be your spouse or your children, or your parents. So this could help anyone. So for me, I am actually discussing today a funny story about my dad. Now, I've been talking about my mom this whole time, but now I've got to introduce Dad. So the kids call my dad Poppy. So in the interest of this story and keeping some anonymity, so some of you know my dad's name, but we're going to call him Poppy. So Poppy, he passed away in January of 2021 from complications of Parkinson's disease. And we kind of went through every single, symptom. He experienced hallucinations, slow gait, shuffling, the shakes. And what a lot of people don't know about Parkinson's is that it's still such a developing disease, meaning that, every time we think we know more about it or that, there's a one size fits all, it's really not. And, the symptoms of it vary and they range. There's a spectrum, if you will. So you start here and then, you'll have all these other illnesses or symptoms throughout, and they're kind of in some sort of order that makes sense. Well, Parkinson's is not that way. So during the time in which he was first diagnosed, or we were attempting to get him diagnosed, his symptoms weren't in any sort of order. And some of the ones that he was experiencing that weren't as common at that time, it was harder for them to really diagnose because they were like, well, maybe he's got something else. Maybe he's got MS. Maybe this is the onset of ALS or lots of other things. And so, needless to say, we finally got him diagnosed. Went through about maybe six years of the decline and just kind of watching it take its course, right? I would say he was probably at stage 3 of Parkinson's at this point in time of this story that I'm about to tell you. So my dad was a very strong person, very much independent, self-serving, just a very virile man. Just, he was a man's man, right? So as he got weaker and his condition worsened, his freedoms became limited, his mobility became limited, things of that nature, right? So one particular day I'm at work and I get a call from the police department. And when I get this call, they're asking who I am. They're saying, hey, is your name Candace? And I'm like, yeah. And so they said, this is the police department. And so my heart is just thumping because I'm not sure who this is related to. It could be my parents, my kids, my brother, anybody, right? So I'm like, yeah, this is Candace. And they say, well, this is the police department and we have your dad here. And so I'm like, have him where? Well, we're at the scene of a car accident. So I'm like, oh my God. Now, mind you, I think you've heard me tell you in other stories that for a period of years, probably for about 5 to 6 years, I worked in downtown Dallas and I would ride the train into work. This damn train would always get me in trouble when it was time to address an emergency, right? So they're telling me, they're like, he seems to be okay, but can you kind of give us some of his history? Is there, it seems like he might be, having some issues, like maybe he's got Alzheimer's or dementia. He seems to be able to answer questions, but he's really shaken up. And I said, well, he does have Parkinson's disease. And so they said, well, okay, we're going to take him into the hospital for now and, get him evaluated. I said, okay, well, I'm on my way. Of course, I jump on the train and I get to him and we're in the ER and everything. And so they've checked him out and, just trying to make sure he doesn't have like any internal injuries. The car, I didn't see the car at that point in time, but it was, from what I was told, it was totaled. So they took it away because by the time I got to him, he was already at the hospital. So I did not see the car. We're at the ER. Of course, after they check you out and they make sure that nothing crazy is going on, they release you, but they tell you, please make sure that you follow up with your doctor. One of the things that the ER doctor said, based on what we shared with them about his Parkinson's and kind of where he was with everything, the doctor strongly suggested that my dad no longer drive. Driving is done. We're done with the driving season of life. I heard it. He heard it. Right? Okay. Now y'all heard it. So I take him home with me. He stays with me for a few days and, make sure he's okay. He was very shaken up. At this point in time, he's living alone. So I just wanted to make sure he was comfortable before, I let him go back home. So, he goes home maybe after about 3 or 4 days. And the following week, I'm at an event. And I just remember that it was very loud wherever I was. It was, I don't remember where I was, but I was at some event. So it's very loud. And I get a call from my uncle. Now, this is my dad's brother-in-law, by the way. This is not the same uncle from the previous story. So he calls me and he says, hey, niece. And I'm like, hey, uncle, what's going on? And he's like, hey, I just wanted to give you a quick call and see if I'm able to get your address and a couple of other details as a reference. So I was a little taken aback because this wasn't a usual request of this person. So I was just kind of like, okay, what's going on, Unc? Can you tell me a little bit more? I don't mind, but I just would like to know a little bit more. So he hesitantly says to me, well, it's for your dad. So I'm like, what's for my dad? Now, mind you, I am my dad's, I write all my dad's checks for his bills at this point. I fill all his medication trays. I attend all of his doctor's appointments. I'm in contact with his physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist, you name it, I'm involved, okay? So I'm trying to figure out why my dad needs a reference for something. And he's like, oh, he just needs to handle some business. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, I'm in his business. So what business could this man possibly be doing? Well, I'm getting ready to tell you. So dad decides that he's going to go behind my back and buy a brand new car off the lot. I'm talking brand spanking new. He says, well, he's here and he's buying a car. I'm like, here where? Oh, I brought him to the car dealership. He asked me if I could bring him to the car dealer to buy a new car. So again, I don't remember which event I was at, but I was at some event. Wherever I was, it was very evident and clear that I was livid because people around me were looking like, is she okay? So I said, what do you mean he bought a car? I said, first of all, the ER doctor explained to him that he does not need to be driving at all ever again based on the way that this car, and I'm sorry, let me back up to say that the day that we went over to the impound to get the car or get the items out of the car that he needed, I don't even know how this man survived this accident. The car looked literally like an accordion. It was completely smashed up. So it made me teary-eyed to see the car, and knowing his condition, it was like, that is nothing short of a miracle that he lived through this, okay? So in my mind, when he's telling me dad bought another car, he's in the process of buying another car, that's all I can see in my mind is this smashed up car in my head. So I said, I'm not happy about this. I said, and I need, this is not okay. I said, the doctor told him specifically that he does not need to be driving anymore, and this is done. So this is the funny part about it. So my uncle is like stuck between a rock and a hard place because he's just like, listen, I'm just trying to be here for brother-in-law. You know what I mean? And I understand that. I said, but he doesn't need to buy another car. I said, and I'm dead set against this decision. And so so I guess my dad must have been like ear hustling, on the side because, he gets on the phone and he said, let me tell you something, little girl. I'm the dad and you're the daughter. And if I want to buy this car, that's what I'm going to do. And I can drive. I feel better. And that's all that matters. She didn't say I couldn't drive again. She said I needed to feel better. So he is going off on me. So I said, what I'm going to do. And I can drive. I feel better. And that's all that matters. She didn't say I couldn't drive again. She said I needed to feel better. So he is going off on me. So I said, all right, you want to buy the car? Buy the car. He hangs up on me. I go on about the rest of my day. Now, I was so mad at him that I didn't even want to see this car. Okay. I was encouraged to go on over there, look at the car, so I go over the following week now at this point in time, I have my dad moved into a place because he had gotten to the point where he couldn't live alone anymore. I got him a room at a very beautiful care home from a couple that I had known personally, and had had my mom in another one of their care homes. And so this is a beautiful house, had him all set up in there. I go over to the care home and I see the car. So I'm instantly pissed off because I'm just like, what is this guy doing? So I'm like, okay, Dad. So we go out in the garage and I'm having him show me everything. And I said, so you feel comfortable about this decision? Then he shows me, I said, well, can I see the paperwork that you got from the dealer? So he shows me the paperwork and, they have taken, I don't want to say taken, but what I will say is that I feel as though that they took some advantage of him in the sense of the price of this car was just astronomical. Of course, he got all the bells and whistles on it. And so I'm just like, okay, here is the funniest part about this story. So when he brought it from the dealership, I guess it maybe had 100 miles on there total. So, it was a very brand new car. So he calls me a couple of weeks later, and I had seen him in between that time. He is still having me take him to the store to go get items. Now, I'm the type of person where I'm like, well, Daddy, I can just go get the stuff at the store for you because my dad was walking slow. He was shuffling. He always looked like he was about to fall, and it was just freaking me out. So I'm taking him to the store still, even though he has bought this brand new car. So what that tells me, and I'm assessing, and I'm like, okay, so he's scared to drive this car. So, he calls me a couple of weeks later and he says, I think I'm going to go on and sell the car. So I'm just like, so of course I'm just like, okay, you know what? I told you not to buy the car, but you wanted to buy the car. So here we are. Anyway, so this was the kicker. My daughter was getting ready to go to, she was in high school. I want to say she was a sophomore. I had a car that I had already intended on giving her when the time came because I had paid a vehicle off shortly before she started the ninth grade. So we already had intended that my daughter was going to get my car. But my dad was like, Jasmine is she's getting ready to, be driving pretty soon. And so it'd probably be good if we could just give the car to her. And he's like, but you got to take over the payments. Daddy, I can't afford this brand new car. I already have I had 2 or 3 cars at that point in time. A couple of them were paid off, but I still had a note on another one. You know the story, you know the drill. So I said, no, this is not what I'm trying to do. So no, so we're going to have to do something else. He has me take him back to the dealership to see if they will take the car back, which I knew that they were not. He is arguing me down that they're going to take this car back. So, of course, we get there. We sit in the sales office and we talk to some people. And so they say, well, we can buy it back. But, of course, the car has depreciated since he took it off the lot. And, of course, he got all these bells and whistles and they financed him some astronomical amount of money. So it just wasn't going to be feasible for us to even try to get this car, or have them take the car back. So he would have just been completely upside down. It was just a whole nightmare. He actually ended up trading it in for a car that was for another family member, and it worked itself out over time, but it was just such a nightmare and headache that he even did this. Now, one of the things that I understand about this whole process is that, and one that we have to keep in mind is that especially with older loved ones who are ill or have any limitations, or there are limitations that have been placed in front of them because of their physical, abilities, they want to feel as normal as possible. They also don't want you to treat them like children or talk to them like children. And so I have had to learn to really take my time with communicating, even with my mother, so my dad was a little bit more vocal and unfiltered, if you will. But just kind of watching the man that he once was to coming to that, I thought about it one day and I said, gosh, I'm not there yet in terms of my life, but gosh, I can't even imagine, getting to a place in my life where I don't have the same abilities and the same freedoms that I once had to just up and go whenever I want to, or just feel safe about some of the decisions that I'm making in terms of driving or, that sort of thing. So if you guys have ever had the situation where you had to take the keys from a loved one, please let me know I'm not alone with that. I've heard other stories similar to that where people have had to take their keys from their loved ones. But, it was funny. Once we actually got that whole thing squared away, he was accepting. But, sometimes people have to get there on their own. And I think that speaks for every moment in life. We reach all these different points in our journey. And it's like, I had to get there on my own. Somebody probably had to tell you a million times to wash the dishes this way or go about life this way or suggested something this way. Your journey is your journey, right? So anyway, I will leave you guys with that today. But I wanted to share that funny story about my dad and just kind of introduce you to him. I'll be sharing more stories about him as well in time. So for now, I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys for episode 5. Bye for now.